Microphones are on.
We'll call the meeting to order. We'll see. Okay. Do we have any new business items, other business items to add to the agenda?
I have an inquiry about a board of variance meeting.
Okay. Any others? Madam Clerk?
Great. This is awesome. Our first item is a presentation. I'd like to invite Mike Esovolov, Supervisor of Mapping and Drafting. Forgive me for the pronunciation. And Sean Watson, Business Systems Analyst, to please come forward to give a presentation, to give a live field data access demonstration.
Okay, let's get the name.
Gentlemen, welcome. Yes, get the name.
Could we please?
Two different years, grade level.
Mike is good.
Clarify the names for the record.
I'm Mike Esovolov. That's how you say it.
How do you spell it?
Esovolooff.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, welcome.
My wife was complaining because it's such a long name on her driver's license. So, yeah, and I'm the supervisor of mapping and drafting and engineering and public works.
Okay. Welcome, gentlemen. The floor is yours.
Great. Can we switch over to... So as I said earlier, I'm Mike. I'm basically working with engineering and public works. I'm the supervisor of mapping and drafting there. Our team basically is responsible for managing a large portion of the city's geographic information systems data, whether it be property information, utilities, roads, fire response mapping. A large part of that resides on us. With that information being maintained in a GIS system, part of our job is also to not just maintain accurate data for the city, but it's also to present that data out both to the public, to staff, whether you're in the field using this information dealing with a water service or you're planning million-dollar infrastructure projects, this information is also presented out. What you're going to see in today's demo is basically sort of the next evolution or the next step in GIS technology and mapping technology, which we highlighted at GIS Day about a week ago. Councillor Towner would say. What this does is it basically takes information and it allows us to create custom maps. It's similar to people who have used QTheMap. QTheMap is sort of our corporate one-stop map of everything. What this technology allows us to do is create custom map applications for specific needs and uses, whether it's communicating something simple or looking at long-range planning. And I'm going to show you some demos of what Engineering Public Works has been doing this year for internal staff regarding this information and some of the tools, and I hope you like what you see. Sean Watson is then going to be taking over and talking a bit about the technology and potentially how it can be used corporately for communicating things in other departments out to the public as well. So what I want to do is show you some of the some examples here of what this is. This is a snapshot of a website that's currently up and running for staff called the GIS portal. And the portal means, technology-wise, it's basically a way you can provide a whole bunch of information through one site. So it becomes a resource for staff. One of the main reasons engineering wanted to sort of be a technology champ on this technology is because we're a heavy user of the data. And one of the reasons we jumped on this is to get data to staff in the field. And that's one of the first things on my demo, was to show you how this information is being accessed live in the field by engineering staff out there on tablets and laptops similar to these. Because if you can imagine working in engineering, you're taking out rolls of maps, you're printing stuff out before you're going out with a ton of paper. Everything is now available through here, and so the first demo here is basically using the technology to create a public works, what we call a field map. And the field map is basically a combination of all of the mapping that, say, a staff member would take out into the field, all these map books that are printed annually, water, sewer, drainage, service connection data, and we basically created a map for them to use in the field. This is an example of it live, and it could be accessed, and they're using it in the field right now. This is a snapshot of a small neighborhood sort of in the Chines area, but you can see the information that's available. It's not only a map book, but your water information is also linked to your engineering drawings in the field. So staff can then basically pull SEDMAS documentation and look at the actual engineering plans in the field, as well as, that might not be working here, but So getting this information in the field, you don't have to go back to the office, print it, and go back out. You have everything at your fingertips. One of the other things that is available for staff in the field are things like the service connection cards, pulling information specifically to where you're on site. It's on a bright screen, so when you're dealing with storm events and things, you're not having to use a flashlight and paper. It's on a nice waterproof screen for you, and it's functioning really well. One of the other things that staff are really enjoying as well with the information out in the field is the ability to see the imagery as well. So if you're in an area where you're actually looking, you can actually see where you are in relation to the driveway or the curb edge or the house corner. And not only that, if there's something wrong with the data that you happen to see, what we also provided was the ability for staff in the field just to drop down a point. So what they're doing in the field is if they see something wrong with the data or it's not right, they're able to push this back live time to our technicians in the field who will update that data, whether it be correcting things. This technology is somewhat leading edge, and we're really happy to be sort of taking advantage of it here in Coquitlam for communicating back and forth from the field. The second demo is basically how we're using it to communicate and save time from a business applications point of view. This is a very simple map. It's our fall sweeping schedule. It's a map we put together for our front counter staff because at this point in time, we have sweepers out sweeping the streets of the city, and we get a lot of customer service calls into our front counters about when will my street be swept, and et cetera, et cetera. This is something that we set up for our roads foreman to quickly allow, when he's done his day, he comes in and he adjusts this. So you can see where in the city the scheduling is scheduled for, what's in progress, and when it's complete. And it's just a simple application that our foreman goes in and clicks, and everybody working the front counters can pull this up and see that. So it's real-time data coming in from sort of operations to a front counter staff member. It saves a lot of paper, a lot of phone calls, emails, photocopying, sending maps. When I talked a bit about earlier as well, is this technology allows us not only to do simple things like that, it allows us to integrate with other business applications in the city, like our maintenance management software, like our Amanda software. What I'm going to show you right now is something, let me just go in here as well. We've created some maps related to water hydrants. We've got so many water hydrants out there for fire response. And so when you look at a map of the city, you see all these fire zones, and there's so much information. To prepare these kind of maps for staff on a daily basis, you're running a lot of paper, you're running a lot of information. All of these hydrants are tied to information related to the date it was installed, all the details. You can zoom in and out. But one of the things when I talked about integrating with other systems, and this is just an example, an engineering example, if you can kind of think how other departments can utilize this. This is an example where we were able to tie this to our work order system, and you can basically see from our work order system that all of these hydrants are currently up for scheduling for service. So our operations staff have information that's in their work order management system that then just pushes to their map. So they can see sort of what's on the schedule for the day. Two systems talking to each other, it's a lot more efficient and a lot more time saving. And my last example, before I turn it over to Sean, who's got some better demos, more kind of fun demos. This is very engineering, but very important as well.
Pete loves it. Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
One of the things this was something that staff really, really like. And when you're talking about being more efficient with the work we do, currently a lot of our pipes, when you're responding to storm events, where you have our pipes filling up and things. Basically, every sanitary and storm pipe, in the city is currently mapped, and you can see on the GIS system, you can see the location of all these storms. What we were able to do is basically, in addition to that, every year, scheduled or upon request, these are videoed with these little sort of robotic cameras that go down, and they basically inspect the pipes. What we were able to do is create a layer that shows you where the pipes have been videoed and inspected. And not only that, when you click on that line, you have basically a link to the report as well as a direct link to the video, and staff can actually view the video of that inspection in the field. So if you can imagine the time savings to go back and forth, and it was funny when this was up at GIS Day, somebody said, "Oh, I know where that is. That's the pool at the CCAC. That's the slide." And I said, no, that's a sanitary pipe. It's kind of interesting to see,
Very different.
that the information at your fingertips.
Want to be sliding down that sucker?
Maybe.
It would be slippery. Yeah, it would be slippery.
Before I turn it over, one of the things I want to show you is that we're only starting to, this year, basically use this new web technology in this analysis tools. And I'll give you a quick snapshot of those pipes. Every time the pipe is inspected, not only do we get the information from those around the pipe defects, but we get something called pipe scores, and we get pipe defects. So basically, the location of root barriers and cracks in the pipe are identified on the pipe approximately where the report says. So it gives staff the ability to see that information in the field and locate it a lot quicker. So the information as well. This button up here is a charting tool, and Sean can show you some other ideas, but after all the information's in from all over the city from these inspections, you basically can run a filter, and it basically shows you citywide all of the pipes that have been inspected, what are at a level 2, what are at a level 3, what are at level 4. For planning purposes, this is really key because you can start to see where in the city to focus future dollars related to pipe infrastructure planning and things. So something like this, like in this demo I'm kind of finishing off now, something like that would have taken hours and hours and hours of trying to assemble to just look and find this information. We're starting to use this technology to put it in the hands of staff to make quick and good decisions. So I'll pass it over to Sean.
Thanks, Mike. Do you mind hitting the quick share?
Yeah.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for giving Mike and I this opportunity to highlight some of the GIS work. Overall, it's been a pretty exciting year for the two of us with regards to GIS. We work closely together. I'm his counterpart in ICT that supports the GIS system. And so from the technical perspective, just want to highlight some of the potential, some things that we might be looking at next year, and just some of the other uses for Portal. What Mike and I have been talking about here today is Portal for ArcGIS. It's a new technology that we've implemented over the last year. Allows us to organize and share this data throughout the organization. It's one of the key components for this is the ability to create applications. So in the past, we used to have thick, kind of cluttered applications that tried to do everything. And now this technology is really enabling the two of us and other GIS users to quickly create more targeted and focused applications for our users. Simple to use. So hopping into that very quickly, this is the framework that we use to create some of these applications. Really, really simple to use. One of the key components of it is it's device agnostic. So in the past, some of our applications may have been tied to certain platforms, certain devices. Moving forward, everything that Mike and I are discussing here today are not dependent on any device. And this application actually allows us to go and preview what it would look like on perhaps an iPhone or a tablet. So I can click on, say, the iPhone 6S, and while we're developing this application, that'll tell you what it's going to look like on that device. Perhaps they're holding in landscape mode, and you can see how it changes the UI a little bit. So it's pretty neat that way. Back to the configuration. Another really important part of this ArcGIS environment is access to open data. So if you're wondering what these colored lines are in the map, it's actually a world traffic service that they provide. So it's something that we can use for free. Just an example of some of the data sets that are out there now that we can incorporate into our applications. They refer to it as a living atlas. So it's really a combination of ready-to-use base maps, aerial photography, demographics, lifestyle data. So it's all out there for us to consume. So what can we do with this? First example we're going to show you, has anyone ever wondered what the city of Coquitlam looked like from above in 1948?
Just this morning I was thinking, oh, IT is looking really new then.
This is
70
great
years
for our
ago.
birthday party.
Actually, that would be a fantastic
I know.
use of this. It's a really great way to compare and contrast two data sets.
absolutely.
So this little application using that framework allows us to create a slider, a swipe app. So what you're seeing on the left is the actual area photography from 1948. And as you come across, you can actually see the Fraser Mills pop up in the bottom middle here. No such thing as Highway 1, just rail lines back then. So it's a pretty neat use of this technology. So
Incredible.
something we can look forward to, and obviously work with our archives and get this geo-registered.
Have out at the 125th.
Similar, but different application of it. You can use this little spyglass application. So just looking at the Vancouver golf course, you can see some of the features they've added, cut down a few trees to make a driving range. And so it's pretty neat use. In addition to that, Mike was talking about some applications for field use. One thing as part of this whole suite that I really like is there's a mobile application that'll work on just about any phone out there. So what we can do is use this to collect and update information in the field. Data that matters to the city includes images, video, and really like reducing paper, increasing productivity out there in the field. One use case, which we got running in around May or June of this year, was actually tracking graffiti locations. So a bylaw officer could be out in the field with their smartphone. As they come across graffiti, they can open that app, take a picture. It'll auto-locate them based on where they are with the GPS for that device. And then right away in the field, basically back in the office, users will have access to see that image. So it's pretty neat. It goes back and forth pretty much real time. As I was sitting here getting ready, I think I took a picture of my water bottle sitting in just about where we are. So yeah, it's a pretty neat use. There's a lot of opportunity for this, and I think we'll be investigating this more next year. The last example is a pretty neat, very simple little application called a story map. So it's an ability to use geography as a tool to like tell a story, and created a really quick little demonstration here using heritage inventory. So this application can showcase like cities' plans, initiatives, projects, maybe development in the Northeast, and what it allows us to do is walk the user through a story using maps and multimedia content. So I can click around on these various locations, zoom into the map. We can include descriptions and images and video, and allow the user to kind of walk through the story. And knowing the location of a lot of these features is pretty valuable. So, and that's about it.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. A couple of speakers. Councillor Reid.
This is excellent, and I hope that the 125th birthday group can somehow incorporate this with the heritage group. And this is excellent for us because I really think it shows our citizens how far ahead we are in the different departments. I think it's excellent. So thank you about the sweeper. Richard and I giggle always about that. We used to call it the phantom truck that we own because nobody ever saw it, and now at least I know how the heck to find it. Is this capable of finding oil tanks, whatever technology you're using to find the pipes? Is it infrared technology or?
Pipes are all the information you see here has been built over the past decades and decades from all of our.
So it's just transferred from what you got into this.
Correct.
Okay. So oil tanks, the answer is no then. Pipes and connections missing and not completed. Now, in my job, when I find a house and it has a whole bunch of city right-of-ways on it, and we're all panicking because, you know, that's a biggie. I had one here that had 4 on one city lot, and it just didn't seem to even be logical. So I went to engineering, and bless them, we went through everything and found them, but 2 were totally not even there. And this is the Westwood Plateau. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into the plateau, which affects homeowners and builders, but we're not using them. And that happens in every city. But some of the stuff that you said you've mapped, are you checking that it's actually there and useful? Because if you could hook up with legal, we could get rid of a whole bunch of this stuff and save ourselves a lot of, counter time. So just throw that one out. And Now, all of these, will this be available to fire? It will be available to fire and RCMP and everybody. It will be a citywide thing. Have you got money in the budget for all these little tools and gadgets that you need for staff? Maybe Jake?
Well, one really nice part of everything we've shown you today is actually included as part of our enterprise license agreement. So technically what we're using, aside from our time and working with staff, the technology is free. So I shouldn't say free, it's already covered as part of our GS licensing.
But not just the technology, I mean the actual physical things that you're looking at, the laptops or whatever. Have we got enough for all of staff?
What we've done, I think a year ago we purchased a bunch of these. I think we purchased maybe 14 of these and then laptops. But what we do every year as part of our budgeting process, I think one of the things that I'm hoping to do is we have a large printing budget for printing maps. I'm hoping to offset the print costs and potentially redirect that money towards these kind of things. So,
and that's where we are. That's about what we have to do. But when we come up with something that you can see is obviously going to be a great time saver, let's make sure we're wrapped up for it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Reid. Mayor Stewart.
Thank you very much. And of course, it's particularly timely because last week was International GIS Week. And the 18th was GIS Day, and I don't know how they come up with these days. But
They asked me to speak at it, but
well, they did.
You were couldn't find the location, though.
They know it's techie when they see what.
I couldn't find my way.
Mayor Stewart.
You probably couldn't afford your speaker's fee. Little things like I assume the street sweeper. I assume it's possible that the street sweeper's GPS would real-time update the route it has swept, or is that how we do it? I know we have the capacity to do that with snowplows.
I'm not sure of the detail, but I believe a lot of our units are GPSed in engineering, so we could confirm that, and they do have the ability to pull back the GPS coordinates, so that's absolutely something we can look at.
Send them off to Section M, and we would know at the end of the day without even relying on manual record keeping.
Yeah.
The
route is taken, yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Diazegi, comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to GIS on our vehicles,
GPS.
thank you, GPS on our vehicles. Some of our vehicles are already equipped, and we could download the data, but it's very cumbersome at this time. So coincidentally, at this point, we are considering for one of the leadership candidates to work on a program throughout next year to see how we can expand the GPS use on vehicles and how we can make the data more easily accessible.
Okay, I'll scratch off question number 2 then. Now on I assume we take as-built drawings off the construction, and that's what gets input, not the plan, but the as-built.
that's right.
And how often are we noticing that the plans aren't as built or as drawn on the as-built?
We have very, how do you say, we've always been sort of improving our standards for data submissions, and we have staff that actually review as the as-bills come in for conformity to standard, even as well as we have inspectors inspecting on site. Typically, the as-bills are quite good. When we do see errors, once in a while with the location of something or a pipe, it's typically because it's really old infrastructure. Anything new, we have very tight standards here at the city for submission, right through from inspection, like I say, to the submission of data. And we also have our own survey crews if we see an error, we always call up our survey crews to go out and locate, and then we send that information into us as well. So it's not just as-built drawings, we're always surveying as well areas.
So that comment that was marked on the Ranch Park thing, which was that the pipe was 2.5 meters south
only.
of whatever.
I did that today just for test only.
Okay,
Yep.
but that kind of note does show up.
It does.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Yep.
And my last one is, how much of this can be open data? How much? I know probably a policy question over to someone else, but obviously we've got a bunch of data that belongs to the city, but isn't exactly secret and would be, you could FOI it, I assume, so how much of it could be open?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'm James Andrews, so I'm the Application Services Manager in ICT. We do have an open data program that we've proposed for 2016 where we will be making this data available to the public. We're going to work through the process to determine how best to make that available. We need to determine, first of all, what data sets are going to be made available, make sure that there's no personal information in them, and then go through a process to make sure that we can disclose the information and then publish it on some sort of open data portal. So it's a project for us for 2016.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. Mine was about open data as well. We had a joint Tri-City Council meeting last week, I believe, week before, and we talked about open data there as well. And also just and I think this may be slightly outside of what you're talking about, but the monitoring traffic counts and patterns and that sort of thing. Is any of the application you're talking about here work for that, or would that be a separate system?
Mr. Diozegi.
The traffic data, traffic count data is readily available on our website to anybody. So we do regular traffic counts and we post the information. So with a very little bit of search, anybody can find the traffic information already.
So traffic counts based on sensors at intersections, or the rubber bands on the
All the above.
All the above. So, well, we'll talk another time. This one. But this is fascinating. Thank you. That's great.
Cool.
Thank you. Councillor Zerillo.
Well, thank you very much. It's very exciting. Lots of potential, I guess. Like you said, you're going to be working on projects for next year. I just wanted to maybe back up a bit and just understand what was the business critical, one or two business critical things that we were working on that brought this in. Because I guess we're going to want to make sure we use it for the one or two things we brought it in for up front before we move forward, because there's obviously lots of potential. I made a note, tourism would be awesome for tourism externally. But what was the business critical reason to bring this in the first place? What are the one or two things that we're using it for?
From an engineering public works point of view, I think there is an awful lot of information and data we have to manage day to day. You can just imagine the hundreds of kilometers of pipes and everything that's out there. Having to do things the old-fashioned way, it's getting very taxing on staff, as well as it's costing the city probably money that we shouldn't be spending. What we're trying to do is use technology to do things better and more efficiently around communicating back and forth from staff in the field, providing the information out. So sort of in the introduction, I guess that's where I was going, is that we see the opportunity to do things better at initially no cost other than our time to develop this and take advantage of some really good technology. And I think that was sort of the business case at this point. As well. And we were running into troubles locating things, locating records. A lot of it was a record management issue, and so this is really helping to solve us with that as well. Basically providing information to staff when they need to see it. So that was one of the business needs internally, anyways, from an engineering point of view. But there's been a lot of sort of questions and thoughts around, like you say, for tourism, for communicating out to the public about what Coquitlam has to offer and other things. This technology we have now, and we can start to use it into 2016 to do that.
So, I mean, so it's really about external, managing the data, like the data that's being gathered out on the street externally is a way to get it in-house easier? Like, was that kind of what happened? Was that there was just so much falling through the cracks when...
No, it's just how we get the data out to staff and out for more efficient decision making. For example, one of the layers which I didn't show is the ability to look at all of our water service connections to homes. We can quickly turn on a layer that shows the age of that water service, the age of the pavement, and it helps you understand if we're going to redo the paving, we should redo those water services. And if you're looking at it without a map like that, you're having to spend hours and hours trying to look at records and find out when were these services put in. If you have a map like that, it makes your job a lot easier, and you're making better decisions. Those are the kind of things from an engineering point of view why we wanted this technology.
And is it going to stay in engineering right now? Like, is it going to stay exclusively for the use of engineering and public works?
Not at all. Every department has access to it. I know planning's starting to get involved. Parks and Recreation is using it for natural area management, their trail management stuff. So every department is on board with this. Well.
And then I just had some questions about the data storage. You said that it's a subscription for the application, but is there a certain amount of data storage you're allowed? Like those videos, I mean, that could get to be quite expensive. So what's the data storage and how long do we get to keep data?
Most of it's internal. So most of the applications, some of the potential use, that's definitely something we need to investigate. So we have a lot of room, but absolutely, we definitely need to check out the size of some of these videos and how much that would cost us for our subscription.
But is there a certain amount of data that you get, or you're saying?
Yes. As part of our annual subscription, we get a certain number of credits, and all activities, whether it's data storage or use of their services, uses those credits. So we'd have to do a bit of analysis, and they provide some tools to do estimates on that as well.
So do we have a framework in place, a policy in place in the city that says this is how long we keep the data and
We'd probably defer to like records management policies on that. And as we get into putting more and more data in the cloud too, it's important to work with the clerks on that and privacy impact assessments and putting stuff in the cloud because it may not be stored in Canada. So.
Well, that's the question too, and especially now with the TPP coming, and that's a lot of city data that's out there, and if we're talking about safety and security, we want to know where that data is. Well, it seems really fun. The only thing that's coming up in my mind is, we could spend a lot of time having fun with it, and I just want to make sure that we know exactly where we're going on the business critical side with the data. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hodge.
Covered off the open data. I think there's some interesting stuff here. There's some interesting stuff for the public that would probably be interested in. When I was at the UBCM conference back in September, and I was at one of the booths, and they were showing the GPS, and some cities have actually started putting data on their website live time when it comes to snow removal, so that somebody can go on, a resident can go on, and they can see where the snow plows have just gone. It leaves a trail. I guess it's green, and after a half an hour it turns, it changes color, so you can actually see the routes that have recently been plowed. Has there been any thought for us going in that direction or something? I know the technology's there, it's a lot of work, but is this a sort of a step that we could get to that someday?
Mr. Diozegi.
Thank you. Through the chair, we are well aware of this technology, and part of it is already available for us. The leadership project I mentioned to you earlier might be looking at this for next year. However, I want to make sure that we fully understand the pros and cons having such information available to us. As you know, when we are dealing with snow and ice control, particularly when it comes to snow removal, in the city we have no choice but to work through priorities. We have priority 1, 2, and 3 routes, and priority 1 is obviously the arterials and the bus routes. So while we may at one point in time have the data available, I'm not certain that it's our best interest to publish it on the website live, simply because imagine you live at the top of a cul-de-sac, you are priority number 3, the snow has been coming down for a day and a half, public transit can't get along, and somebody would look up on the internet, hey, the snowplow just went by my little street. What are you guys doing? So I think at those times we really have to be critical what information we make available. I'm not suggesting that we wouldn't. What I'm suggesting is that the public has to be aware of our capabilities, and we'll have to understand why we work in priorities, how we work in priorities. So there's 2 different things. One is the availability of the technology, the other is what we do with the information. So from my selfish perspective, the best use of the information is to make operational decisions on the spot when it's needed. In my past, I had an instance where I got a phone call at the middle of a 3-day snow event. Nobody could get in and out from many, many neighborhoods, and somebody passed away. So you had to go to that cul-de-sac and clean it so that the authorities could do what they could. So in this case, it's a good use. But other than that, to invite complaints, I'm not so sure about that.
So it's a case of, in some cases, having information but not being able to present it without the appropriate information and reasoning behind it.
That is correct.
Okay.
Context is everything.
Yep.
Councillor Towner.
I just want to say I feel very fortunate that I had the opportunity to pop into the GIS day last week, and I just want to say kudos to the staff. They were very enthusiastically showing me all the different real-world applications and relevant, all the work that's done. And I found it fascinating, but everybody did a really good job. So I just wanted to give you guys kudos and thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Excellent. Mike, Sean, thank you very much, gentlemen. A good presentation, and it's there seems to be a trend that the engineering presentations we get are the most exciting. So thanks for keeping that moving forward. That's great. I know it's a surprise, Mr. Ralloway, Madam Clerk.
I took a picture of this map. Nobody liked it or commented. So that proved to me that nobody was in my place.
Our second item is the minutes of the Council and Committee meeting held on Monday, November 9th. The recommendation is that the committee approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Zarrillo.
I just had a mention of something on the minutes. Item number 3, when Mr. Hamilton came, there was a comment made by Planning and Development that they would follow up with Mr. Hamilton, and I don't see it reflected in the minutes. I'm wondering if we could amend minutes to add that there will be follow-up.
If council agrees, we can accept the minutes as revised.
So just that Planning and Development would follow up with Mr. Hamilton.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have the motion? Yeah. Seconded? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next up.
Item 3 is a delegation. I'd like to invite Mr. Harry Watson of the Mundy Park Community Association to please come forward to discuss a petition against the proposed 153 bus route on Thermal Drive and Moray Street and traffic safety concerns.
Mr. Warren.
Still got it. Yes, thanks.
What did I say?
Watson. You said Watson. But that's okay.
Watson sounds more intelligent.
It's a name change. As long as you don't call me late for dinner, we're okay.
Watson goes from Watson to Warren to Wilson on the intelligence. That right?
And we'll bring the meeting back to order. Mr. Warren, on behalf of council, welcome.
Yes.
Confused with Dr. Watson.
First off, thank you, Mayor and Council, for accepting our invitation to appear before you. As you probably know, that we have a big issue here with the bus route 153 being proposed along Thermal Drive, Moray Street. And basically, how this all came about was basically, I read the paper, but not so often, too much anymore, but every now and then I read it. And of course, it was just that one summer day, I was reading it to discover the end of August that we're having this bus route and being proposed. And it was quite unnerving. So I started asking the local residents around exactly what they thought of this. And needless to say, we had like a 90% pushback against this route. A lot of older time residents in the area have real concerns with the safety of the hill, the winter conditions, even been made so with the question of land use that would come about that if a bus route was approved. And the problem there is that with the slope of the hill, and my discoveries in terms of doing the research of the hill. If you actually look in your QMaps section of your city website and you see the steepness of that hill that is behind all those homes in Thermal Drive and Baker Drive, it is absolutely insane. It's probably pretty well close to almost between 45 to 60 degrees. And the thing is that a weight of a home, for example, it's anywhere from like 60 to 100 pounds per square foot. Most normal homes are going to be in the low range, a couple of thousand to 3,000 square feet. You do the math. You start thinking that if the land use changes because of a bus route and they start building bigger buildings, the amount of weight that would put on that unstable hillside alone would be much of a concern. Backtracking a little bit, the 18-degree hill itself is more noted for a lot of famous things, like, for example, the trip of Rick Hansen coming up 3 times. It was a a happy accident for them to come up the hill. But in retrospect, though, for winter drivers and people using that hill for any other purpose, other than car trips, it's actually very, very steep. And if you actually have a bus going up and down that hill, you have two problems. Coming up the hill is you're dealing with possible engine fires like they've had up in Westwood Plateau, which have much slower slopes of the hill. And going down the hill, of course, you're dealing with the braking issue and the higher center of gravity of the bus itself. Now, thermal drive has been noted for a lot of things, and one thing we don't want is to be noted for a really bad bus accident. We don't have runaway lanes. We don't have the safety features that you would normally have in a provincial highway that would be required for anything that has an 8 or 10% degree slope. I've traveled back and forth to Alberta several times in my career, and any time that there's 8, 10, 12% grade, there's always been a runaway lane. We don't have that here, and the people that are going to suffer the most, sadly, will be our friends in Port Moody on the Moray side. And so you're coming down that hill, it'll be their front yards, it'll be their houses that'll be stopping a bus. And like you say, the safety issue of the commercial vehicle aspect is also comes into play. The speed limit comes into play. Recently we had a speed trap on Ultra and Thermal Drive and at one afternoon they wrote 71 tickets. Now, those tickets were 51 kilometers and above. It was allowing for the calibration of the radar. And with that, they wrote 71 tickets in a day, whereas Coquitlam wrote 790 tickets last year. It was almost a full 10% from speeding in that one section. So that and the commercial vehicle aspect of it, there's incidences where we've had an air liquid truck go all the way down the hill, according to some residents. Followed them all the way down the hill, not realizing that, if that thing would have overturned, the accident that would have happened would have been severe. But anyways, in closing, I've wrote some history about thermal drive, as well as I'm also copying our letter that we did to TransLink, as well as the petition itself. If you have any questions or whatnot, by all means, I've heard it all in our campaign along the route. And the one unique thing that you'll notice in our notes is that TransLink's survey, until we actually notified the residents along the road, it was less than 50% of the people actually even knew that this was happening, and which is astonishing. We had to let them know. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warren. This council has had a lot of discussion about this. We've had a presentation, a brief presentation from TransLink. As you're aware, we've talked about this issue. I want to ask Mr. Diozegi, can you give us a quick update with regards to our progress with TransLink?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Indeed, Mr. Warren is quite correct that there are some very steep sections of thermal drive. I have a sketch in my hand. Sorry, I didn't have an opportunity to distribute it just before the meeting, but some sections are as steep as 15.5%, 12.2%, or 11%. That accounts for about 25 to 30% of the entire length. As Council is well aware of, TransLink has approached Council relatively recently, and they presented their plan to make some changes in the bus servicing, including the questionable 153 route. Staff went through the motions, and as per TransLink's request, we sent a letter on November the 6th, and in the letter we outlined our concerns about the proposed route changes and suggested to TransLink that perhaps the service hours that they intend to utilize for thermal drive and vicinity would be better used at the northeast, where we are building a community which which badly needs public transit servicing. And if you put this together with the incoming Evergreen line by towards the end of next year, definitely, in our opinion, it would be a better use. We also cited in the letter that we had a delegation from Coast Mountain on November the 2nd, and they indicated that their union has some safety concerns, and they did some test drive on Thermal Drive. Our staff actually participated in that test drive, and we concur that there are indeed safety issues associated with buses on Thermal Drive. So in the letter, again, on November 6th, we requested TransLink staff to indicate when they may be able to discuss this issue further, both with council and other than that with staff. And I also made the extra step of I will have a meeting on December 11th with one of the vice presidents of TransLink to further this issue.
Thank you, sir. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Warren, I wonder if you are aware of the action that council has taken, and if so, what is your actual request of council right now, other than just general awareness and you being able to have a forum for this important subject? Are you asking us to do something more than this?
Well, going door to door, I mean, the history itself, put in my notes, it's been rather troubled along Thermal Drive. It's almost like in 1968, for example, there was actually massive protests of when they wanted to connect Thermal Drive and Moray. I personally, not just the bus route itself, I actually like to see more commercial vehicle enforcement, more excessive speed enforcement. It's such a narrow road that I just want council to continue to helping us on your behalf to basically tell or other organizations that these types of commercial vehicles aren't going to be really welcomed in the neighborhood, and it's not a road really built for it.
Right, so we have sent the letter to TransLink, and we don't make these decisions. TransLink is making the decisions. Mr. Giozecki did outline the letter. Council saw the letter in advance and gave him feedback to make sure that the letter reflected council's will.
Yeah.
And it did. So as well, Unifor came, representatives from the union came, and raised some very good points about the safety. So we've made that known.
Yeah.
And so your other sort of general point is that this is a road that's got a lot of challenges and a lot of issues.
Yes.
Speed enforcement, and just that safety. I think it's come up before from various people. So thanks for that. But if there's anything more specifically on the buses that you thought we could do, but maybe forgotten to do, or maybe haven't thought of it, I'm not sure. So if it's just a general concern, then we've got it. Thank you.
Well, and this is it. It is a general concern. I mean, the running joke, basically, between all the residents as I'm doing this petition door to door to door, said, well, if they want transit on the hill, why don't they have a gondola?
Yes.
And as funny as that may sound, but the topography in the back of the ravine.
I don't want to.
The topography in the back of the ravine would probably not allow that. But I mean, it's just so wacky that like people are just beside themselves and they wanted to express their opinion.
Yeah.
And as I was going door to door, and oddly enough, yes, there's people out there that they want to transit. But it's a small minority. The people either didn't live that very long on the hill, they weren't informed enough to make that type of a comment, or they didn't understand really the gravity of, literally the gravity of the situation of what could happen if you have an accident. I've seen these accidents where commercial vehicles have hit each other in provincial highways. It's devastating, and I don't want that in our neighborhood. It's not was not good for anybody. But basically, what council could do is make steps to have maybe a bigger sign for commercial, no commercial trucks. I know as a group that now that we're all email connected, we're going to be looking at doing, continual reports of issues that will come up on the Hill. And we'll be forwarding on to the various agencies. And then that way we can get this problem solved a lot more constructively. But however, they were looking for a way to express their opinion, and we provided that, and it just, we felt we had to do it. Normally our association, we're not too active unless it's really something that really matters. Case in point would be when we had the issue, a young girl getting killed in front of Combe Lake Village, the micro paving, there's a number of different issues that we've been involved in over the years that have been really constructive. And, but, until something like that appears, like this situation, we don't really.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
Right, thanks.
Councillor Asmussen?
Just quickly, as you've heard, Harry, council's in agreement, and we've sent that through. So what you can do to help us in this area is make sure that your petition goes to TransLink. Yeah. Make sure they have it. I would encourage you to set up a meeting with the TransLink planning, have them come out from, because we're sending in a message there. If you can do that part of your thing, because as Councillor O'Neill said, at the end of the day, we don't make the decision on this, but the more people that bring this issue to them from different avenues is what should be done. So I would encourage you to take this petition directly to TransLink planning, and I think we can put in contact with the people that it needs to go to through our office, and then set up a meeting with them and your residents on that. But I thank you for coming out. I think that's all we need from you. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, we actually did forward the original petition to TransLink within their survey guidelines. But like I said, it was we could have gotten a lot more. I was getting lots of interest and people all over Chine-side against this, but we just ran out of time. It was just such a short time frame.
So Warren, thank you very much. Appreciate your work on this. You've noted a couple of items with regards to the bus that I'm very comfortable that Mr. Diozzegi's on top of. Council certainly is in agreement with you on that. Thanks. As to the enforcement, we have seen that improvement. That has come as part of Council's direction to the RCMP. So it's one of the many streets that we've got residents clamoring for more enforcement and to make sure that we keep them safe. So your message is falling on receiving ears.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for your time today.
Much really appreciated. Thank you very much.
Deft ears, maybe.
Madam Clerk.
Okay. Item 4 is a report concerning the Canada Day mural and its key themes. And although this wasn't formally included on the agenda, we do have introductory comments from the Manager of Community Planning and a presentation from the Senior Planner.
Welcome, gentlemen. Looking forward to this. I know this is, I think, a result of something that Councillor O'Neill had asked for as far as summary with the candidates. So, and the committee as well. So welcome. Take it away, Mr. Johansson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. Provide a brief update on the Canada Day mural. As we know, Coquitlam does a number of community outreach and engagement activities, and a key multicultural outreach activity, in addition to our annual Welcome to Coquitlam event, is the multiculturalism booth at the annual Canada Day celebration. Volunteers from the city's Multiculturalism Advisory Committee, or MAC, help to run this booth, which is very popular with event-goers. And in the past years, this booth has involved innovative interactive activities that engage Coquitlam residents about multiculturalism. And Steve will be talking about those in a moment. This year, in building on these past activities, MAC put forward the idea of the Canada Day mural as a new form of fun and informative engagement. So I'll turn things over to Steve Gully, who is our Senior Community Planner, who will tell us more about the mural and highlight key themes for Council's information.
Just hit it.
I have a perfect track record with this not working. Thank you, Carl. In support of the...
It's sought after. So
In support of the Multiculturalism Advisory Committee's request, this past September, Council passed a resolution directing staff to report back to Council on the I Love Canada Day mural from this year's Canada Day celebration. To begin, just a bit of background for Council. This is the fourth year that members from the Multiculturalism Advisory Committee have volunteered their time in support of Coquitlam's Canada Day celebration. Through the event, committee members help in promoting the city's multicultural initiatives, which meets a goal of our multiculturalism strategic plan, specifically related to engaging Coquitlam's culturally diverse community at local festivals and events. For the past 4 years, the Multiculturalism booth at Canada Day has had interactive activities that engage Coquitlam residents. This has included a Where You Were Born world map, which residents can identify their place of birth, a generations exercise through which residents can share the number of generations that their family have been in Canada, and this year we added a mural to the Canada Day event. The mural provided an opportunity for Coquitlam residents to share their thoughts on why they love Canada in their native language, thus adding a multilingual component to the multiculturalism booth. The mural was a successful addition to the multiculturalism booth, with residents sharing their love for Canada in 9 different languages, as well as through drawings and sketches. Just as importantly, the mural stimulated discussion and promoted interactions between those attending Canada Day. In helping to promote the mural, some residents even took pictures with the mural and posted them to social media. So, what were the thoughts the Coquitlam residents shared with their neighbors through the mural? To begin a review of the comments expressed on the mural, staff first translated them to English, then entered them into a word cloud software program. This is a fun way to determine the words most frequently used on the I Love Canada Day mural. As you can see on the screen, words such as love, freedom, people, and harmony were commonly expressed. This was followed by a more rigorous analysis, which revealed 6 themes with respect to why Coquitlam residents love Canada. These include an appreciation for the natural environment, that Canadians are welcoming and friendly, the Canadian values respect freedom and social justice, that Canada is a safe place and a family-oriented country. Finally, Canada is seen as simply a great country. To reinforce the themes, here are some of the selected translated quotes from the mural. As Council can see, Coquitlam residents love Canada for a variety of reasons, from the freedom Canada provides to it being a country where maple syrup and poutine were invented. Following Canada Day, the mural went on a bit of a roadshow and was displayed at City Hall for several weeks, as well as the public library. In each of these venues, Coquitlam residents were also provided an opportunity to add their thoughts as to why they love Canada. So that's a brief overview of the Canada Day mural. I'll turn it back over to the chair if there's any questions.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you very much. And I was at the committee meeting with the chair, Councillor Asmundson, when the committee asked that the presentation be made, and we're thankful that Council agreed for that presentation to be made. And this reflects, I think, an emerging theme within the committee that is looking at what multiculturalism means in Coquitlam. It's more than just the celebration of diversity. It's more than the recognition of the diversity. It's more than the communicating about diversity. It's also about, so that's sort of stage 1 multiculturalism in my mind. Stage 2 is something the committee has dealt with over the last year or two, and that's interculturalism. It's the different communities getting to know each other. Now, I think what we're seeing in the I Love Canada because is sort of an emerging stage 3 multiculturalism, and that's dealing with the recognition of the common things that people share about why they came to Canada and what they love about Canada, essentially the common values they have. These values can be found in people who've lived here for 5 generations, or people who've come here and it's the first generation. It's the things that have brought them to Canada. So I think this is a new understanding of what what multiculturalism is all about. It's also about the things that bind us together, and I think that's a very, very positive move. And I think this mural is is reflective of this growing and richer and deeper understanding of multiculturalism. So I'm very glad it's been presented in this public forum. I hope the people of Coquitlam get to see it more and understand it and appreciate the maturity that's behind the project and certainly the celebration of all the wonderful things in our community as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Zerillo.
Well, again, another fun thing on the agenda today, so thank you very much for that. What came into my mind is that this should probably go in case, and maybe it already has, to strategic planning. I know that we're working now on our updated strategic planning, and we're looking for input, and this should certainly go to Nikki's department for sure. I wanted to talk about something else, though, and it's going to be a common theme today, and to Mr. Seblin, it's going to come up a few times today. Strategic goal. Under the strategic goal in this report, it's my understanding we only have 5 strategic goals in the city, and the way it's been set out in the report here, it's not one of the 5. One of the 5 strategic goals is not listed here. So I'd love to see this when it goes forward to Nikki, that it's got one of the 5 strategic goals that we already do at the city, and then the verbiage underneath. But I would like to see us stick to those 5. I think every department should know what the 5 are, and we should have them on every report. I know I've talked about this before, but I think that we need to be consistent with the language on the strategic goals, and to ad-lib underneath is fine, but I'd like to see that go to strategic planning in that format. Thank you.
Thank you. So specifically fitting one of the strengthening neighborhoods or something along those lines, correct?
Yeah, we're going to see throughout the reports today that there's some different language.
Okay. Councillor Asmussen?
I think this is a great project by the city, allowing people to express their feelings towards Canada and what it is. But I think we have to take it in one place. It gives us some interesting ideas and concepts from it. It's not a statistically valid information survey on what's going on, but it's an expression of ideas and thoughts that are in the community. And I think that's very good from that point of view. And it's an exercise that allows people that are coming here to, I think, show to people that, people coming here, whether they've been here while council or just coming in, do share those values. And it shows that new immigrants believe in our country and the values, and they're coming in here. And I think we need to acknowledge that and share that information moving out. But it's not really something that can go to strategic planning being used as a statistically valid type of information. It's not in that. It can be used in an augmenting sense, but not that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
We have one other business item concerning the Board of Variance. It was raised by Councillor Reid.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you. To Mr. McIntyre, before he runs away. I thought you got out, didn't you?
Good try.
It's quite common knowledge that when staff doesn't have the tools with which to approve something, that it's told that folks should go and try and apply through the Board of Variance, which isn't fair game. But there's one that's coming up now on a fairly decent-sized lot, and it's the relaxation of the perimeter wall area and the elevation. My concern is the more rules we put in, the more there are people that need to change them. And would this come under one of the giant houses, monster houses? Because we're working very hard. This is where I get my concerns, and I don't mind if it's a hardship, but when you're building a house, it's not a hardship if it isn't built yet. And I don't like people thwarting the rules that we're trying to put in to have a community that's supposed to grow as we have planned it. What's this?
We're just circulating the agenda for tomorrow night.
Oh, I've got it already.
Yep.
Oh, you're just so efficient. Okay. So I'm not going to bring up the address or anything like that. If you can, when I looked at the plans, it's not a teeny tiny lot, and it's a very affluent area. So this leads me to believe that it's going to be a pretty substantial house.
Okay.
Should I do comments on why we would have turned it down? I can see by the reasons that were printed. And I know we have no jurisdiction over this, but I think there's got to be, I don't know why people can use these rules to thwart it, because it certainly isn't hardship.
No.
Perhaps if I could, through the chair, thank you for raising that, the question, Councillor Reid. I'm not specifically aware of this particular application, but I will go back and check with staff. But what you point to is it happens on occasion. You know, they're asking, they're seeking a variance, and this. You're correct. This is one of the provisions that's in the zoning bylaw that we were actually tweaking with just a month ago with the large house initiative. So I would just quickly scanning it. Looks like they want to get a relaxation on that. It's for them to decide if in their minds they feel they have a hardship and they therefore apply to the Board of Variances. It's not for staff to block them from doing that. You know, we give them advice, but we can't block them. We can do those. We look at the application, obviously, and we can provide some commentary. So I'll check with the staff that are involved, and typically the Board of Variance is pretty perceptive about these things where people are trying to doing an end run on the bylaws and the rules and regulations, and on occasion when that happens, it gets declined, and those people find themselves either come back to council through a development variance permit where there's notification, or they amend their plans. So I can check into what the particulars are in the situation, and I believe the board's meeting tomorrow night. Yeah. So
all I want to point out is that I think hardship is one thing, but when you haven't built it yet and you're trying to thwart the rules, that's another thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. On that, Mr. McIntyre, I note that the hardship is noted as the errors during plan checking. So again, just take a look at that and let's see.
But it still doesn't excuse us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go.
Fair comment. Comfort?
I read those things all the time, as Jim knows.
That was the last item.
Move adjournment. My apologies. I wish I prefer to have, particularly when the application is somewhat complex. I'm not sure. Where are we at now? We're partly built or not built at all? I know I haven't read anything. I just haven't.
Is it saying it's partially constructed?
The mayor said a couple of times it's not built yet.
Well, it's not finished yet, obviously, because it's the final stage. Interior's sorry. Interior also. It's still not finished.
Okay, so they're suggesting that the hardship is that your staff didn't catch their mistake? Is that it? Because that's what plan check's for. Plan check is to catch mistakes.
That's what I read in front of me here. I don't know the particulars.
I assume our comments will be that our plan checking isn't there to catch their mistakes. For their benefit, it's for public benefit, and we don't have an onus or a duty of care to the owner. We have a duty of care to the public, and so.
Thank you.
I just want to make it, and perhaps say publicly, that no, the Board of Variance isn't there to make up for the builder's mistakes. The builder can correct his mistakes. Sometimes it requires a rebuilding of something. So.
Thank you. We had a motion to adjourn? Yeah. Second? Okay. Favor? Opposed? Carried? O'Neill, Asmussen. We need